by film.
Five,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by announce.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
They're the Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks of Hobbs. American public, you are worthless.
Can't account for taste.
Nice. Your teaser from earlier on the loose
fantastic.
adaptation.
The Human Torch was denied a bankroll.
Shove that Pulitzer Prize square up your ass.
I'm so happy.
I'm as best as you're going to get, ladies, so here you go. We have... Shut up! Then it's not a four!
Masturbatory bullshit. I get the joke now.
Hey,
Stupid,
kids.
wonderful thing. Yeah.
Here's some stickers.
Are you in the crosshairs of the woke mob?
To the bridge of Kazakh Doom.
What is happening in my mouth?
Pumpkin spice lattes.
I was the mark?
You were the mark, man.
You want to get high together? You want to drink?
Cinema.
Subterfuge, machinations.
Wow.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right, well, welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode and a brand new year of 20 Years, 4 Beers. We are a podcast dedicated to rewatching movies from at least 2 decades ago, while simultaneously enjoying a minimum of 4 modern beers. My name is Steve, and this is my big brother,
Tim.
and we are coming to you from just outside Minneapolis, Minnesota. We begin our foray into the years of 2005 with some slight changes to our overall feel,
Structure,
I guess. I don't know,
focus,
yeah. But we think it'll be more fun for you because it'll be more fun for us. This year, we are going to be taking some additional detours to watch some older anniversary films. And while we are not rebranding, obviously, we are also not going to be solely looking at 20-year-old films. For a long time, we've been saying at least 20 years ago. And this year, more than ever, we are embracing that at least pretty heavily. One other slight change is that we will have some theme months, kind of, meaning our main episode and happy hour will have some sort of common thread, or in true 20 Years, 4 Beers fashion, some very thin connection that we still call a theme.
I'm excited.
So with all of that out of the way, we are still starting the year with films from 2005, 20 years ago. And our theme is basically starting the year off right. Meaning we... Can you hear the dog?
Don't mind the dog in the background.
Meaning we are picking films that we know we will enjoy rewatching. And in this premiere episode, we will be rewatching a film that we have referred to many times in the past. And we'll be watching the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven. Before we start, though, we typically take a few moments to discuss any new movies or television that we've watched recently. I actually just have one, and I think I'll start this time, since last time I had all of them.
The litany of stuff. That was great.
I actually finished watching Skeleton Crew. Are you done with it yet?
Yes, done. Yep.
Yeah, okay. We have not talked about it, really. I cannot stress how much I love this show.
Yeah.
And I kind of have a hot take on it, and it's not a hot shot, but I will say I cannot also get Matt to watch it. He has no interest in watching it. I loved it. I loved it from the moment it started to the moment it ended. It has all the Amblin style of the 80s just sitting in there. It's like Stranger Things when that came out, but without the sort of horror, sort of scary aspects to it. It's just fun. You know, I said, I think when I started watching it to you, it's Goonies meets Treasure Planet or Treasure Island in space, you know, and you're just kind of like, I don't know how else to say it. Jude Law's outstanding as whatever his name actually turns out to be.
Jaja Nawud.
It's all that stuff. The kids are great. The practical effects are great. The elephant
special effects are amazing.
Special effects are amazing, but then even their attention to the practical effects.
Yeah, the combination was unparalleled.
The way they filmed the elephant kid,
right?
They filmed it multiple times. Did you see this at all?
I think you were telling me before.
Yeah, they film it with the kid.
Yeah,
and they all interact, and then they film it with a stand-in with the head on.
Yeah,
so that later on they can go back and so they have to film it like twice.
Yeah, merge everything,
and they merge everything together. It's outstanding. I loved it.
It was fantastic.
Yeah,
like it's a slow build.
Yeah,
I'll say. But man,
but by the end of that second episode, you're kind of like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah, the first was like, okay, all right. And then on, and yeah, the kids and I and Ellen watched it and just binged it last weekend.
Yeah.
Loved it.
So good.
Just thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's pleasant. Nothing crazy. And as far as like Star Wars go, I mean, I like the Mandalorian stuff. I haven't watched Andor, but It was a nice, like, very accessible show. You didn't have to know anything really about this other movies or shows.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice. It was unto itself and not like, here's some big backstory thing. So yeah, it was very, very good.
It's, in my opinion, it's the third best Star Wars of any kind since the original trilogy.
Ooh. Okay.
Maybe fourth. It kind of depends on, because I would say Rogue One, obviously, and then we here love The Last Jedi.
Yes.
We love The Last Jedi.
Love it.
But then it's Andor and this. Like, I think Andor is better than this, but it is kind of like it's so.
I hear it's great.
And
nice.
Yeah, it's like third or fourth, and it's better than any of the prequels or sequels.
Oh gosh, absolutely.
It is by far and away better than that, and I think it's better than Mandalorian, especially after season 1.
True. Yeah, Mandalorian was tough to get through.
Yeah. So anyway, I the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh man, I can't wait for a rewatch.
And it definitely has that great 80s vibe to it. They did really good overall, everything.
Yep. What do you got?
Got caught up on some stuff you had mentioned before, but watched Transformers 1,
dude,
the animated film last year, which you had mentioned was fantastic, and it indeed was. It was surprisingly great. I had no idea or expectation. Like, we watched it with the kids.
As good as it is,
it was like, and as someone that knows, like, oh, this is going to be Megatron and Optimus Prime. Like, cool.
Yeah, you get it.
But like with people that have no idea, like the kids were just amazed. Like, this is so great. It was fantastic. The animation was great.
Business going as hard as it does. Like,
the story,
it's. I can't wait for them to make more, and I hope they do.
I hope they do. Yeah, it was really, really good. So highly recommend that. Also got caught up on Saturday Night.
Sure.
The film about the first kind of show, the 90 minutes leading up to it. I would say my favorite show of all time is SNL. I find it fascinating. Yes. It's amazing. It stood the test of time.
It's probably the most influential show of all time.
Absolutely. Like, it's so incredible.
Yeah.
So I'm obsessed with the show. I've read like Live from New York, kind of the oral history of it, and love it. I would say if you don't have like a mainline obsession with it, I don't know how you would enjoy it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
With it. I enjoyed it, but I did struggle with it a little bit. Yeah.
But it was just okay.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I'm like, who is this person? Who's that person? Who's like, if it just felt like a love letter.
Yeah.
But if you weren't on the inside of the joke, you had no idea what was happening. So I can't recommend it.
No. Yeah. No, I wouldn't recommend it to almost. I mean, if you're interested in the craft and you're interested in, like, it's a well-made film.
Like the chaos.
It's well done.
Yes.
I mean, I think they missed some opportunities with it, but overall I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think I gave it like a 7 out of 10 or something like that.
Like, it's just okay.
Yeah.
I loved it, but I can't recommend it.
Yeah. Also, that kid, like the main cat, like the kid from The Fabelmans.
Yes.
And
Your first two big roles are
you get the
Spielberg and Lorne Michaels.
Lorne Michaels,
Yeah, not bad.
Yep.
And then last Friday, Ellen and I were hanging out, and she's like, I just need something really stupid.
Sure.
Mindless action comedy. I'm not looking for much. And that was exactly that when we watched Back in Action, the Netflix romantic comedy action starring, coming out of retirement of sorts, Cameron Diaz with Jamie Foxx. It's, what you're getting into.
Okay. All right.
It's not great. It's not bad.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like a January Netflix release.
Right. Which is where it should be then.
I'm okay with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, don't force that on me in like November or something.
True.
And, call it Oscar bait or something.
Yeah. Like
that.
Ellen was like, this is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm exhausted, getting over the norovirus. Let's just watch something stupid. And it was exactly what I needed.
I think I'm going to watch You're Cordially Invited movie.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? On Prime with Will Ferrell and Reese. And I bet that's going to be the kind of same thing.
I have no doubt it's going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it was exactly what I needed at the time.
Perfect. Well, thank you. All right. Well, as mentioned, we are going to rewatch Kingdom of Heaven. Obviously, the director's cut.
Obvious.
We'll talk about that later.
Yep.
Kingdom of Heaven follows a young Frenchman, played obviously by the very British Orlando Bloom, during the time of the Crusades. The young man loses everything he loves, but finds a new path with the help of his estranged father, a knight who has returned from the Middle East. The young man eventually travels to Jerusalem to take on his father's quest, but soon realizes that the path he has taken is not the path he is destined for. What follows is an epic vision of the Crusades and a thoughtful look at the religious battles still being fought today. The film is directed by Sir Ridley Scott, written by William Monahan, and stars Orlando Bloom, Eva Green, Jeremy Irons, Liam Neeson, Edward Norton, David Thewlis, Brendan Gleeson, who's in every epic action film, Alexander Siddig, and Michael Sheen.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, then invented Facebook.
This is a social network
You don't have to be an intellectual property expert to understand the difference between right and wrong.
where we take a look back at the critical and fan reception from 2 decades ago.
Mark!
As usual, Tim takes point on this, so take it away, Tim.
You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything. $1 billion.
The IMDb rating is 7.3 out of 10, which actually, considering the kind of criticism of the time, it's maybe higher than I expected.
I wonder how many of that is rated after like the director's cut or whatever, because I do wish that I think we need to normalize having, because how many cuts of Blade Runner are there?
3, yeah.
Right, and you're like,
True.
we need to normalize having a rating for each one.
True.
Like,
Yeah, true.
so,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe it's like splitting the difference. Ty Burr of Boston Globe, and again, these critiques at the time were from the release of the theatrical release. From the Boston Globe, said,
Yes.
a most lumbering, occasionally rousing epic that walks a bizarre line between historical fact and Hollywood wishful thinking. Carrie Rickey of the Philadelphia Inquirer said the cinematography, supporting performances, and battle sequences are so meticulously mounted that they still amaze and compel, even with lead Orlando Bloom when he fails to. Sorry, even when lead Orlando Bloom fails to. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4. Said what director Scott seems to be suggesting by the even-handed tone of the film is that most Christians and Muslims might be able to coexist peacefully if it were not for the extremists on both sides. This may explain why the movie has displeased the very sorts of Muslims and Christians who will take moderation as an affront. Most ordinary moviegoers, however, will not care much about the movie's reasonable politics and will likely be absorbed in those staples of all historical epics, battles, and romance. And Academy Awards that year up for none.
Again, we're going to get back into that later.
Yeah.
So, all right, there we go. We are going to pause and rewatch the movie. If you are so inclined, go right ahead and watch along with us. But if you do, make sure it's the director's cut. If not, we'll see you on the other side of this break. Here now is Kingdom of Heaven.
How find you Jerusalem?
God does not speak to me. Not even on the hill where Christ died. I am outside God's grace.
I have not heard that.
At any rate, it seems I have lost my religion.
I put no stock in religion. By the word religion, I've seen the lunacy of fanatics of every denomination be called the will of God. I've seen too much religion in the eyes of too many murderers. Holiness is in right action and courage on behalf of those who cannot defend themselves. And goodness. What God desires is here and here. And what you decide to do every day, you will be a good man. Or not.
Silence!
Salahadin has crossed the Jordan with 200,000 men.
He will make first for Kerak and Reynald the Chatillon, my lord.
We must meet him before he reaches Kerak. I will lead the army.
My lord, if you travel, you'll die.
Send word to Balian to protect the villagers. Assemble the army.
We begin our discussion with our reaction segment that we call Spotlight.
This is Boston, and the church does not want them to be found. So, they are not there.
This is where we highlight and discuss our top takeaways of any kind from rewatching our subject film.
We've got 2 stories here. We've got a story about degenerate clergy, and we've got a story about a bunch of lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry.
If there were 90 of these bastards, people would know.
Maybe they do.
This is Spotlight.
They knew, and they let it happen!
All right, well, welcome back to 20 Years, 4 Beers. We have just finished rewatching Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut, and also have had 4 new beers that we review in a segment coming up. But first, we talk about our immediate reactions in this Spotlight segment. I kind of, for a movie this long, I felt like I was taking copious notes early on.
Definitely.
Like in the first hour, I'm kind of like, I should, and then I was like, there's still like 2 hours to go here. And then the back hour, I'm like, man, I shut my computer.
We were just sitting here
watching
watching it.
Enjoy. So, what do you got going? What do you got, Tim?
So, I struggle with this film.
Okay.
In as much as, I can see from the studio's perspective, when Ridley Scott brought in like the 3-hour, 10-minute film, and they were like, what now?
Yeah.
And so at the time, they're like, we got to cut it down. And they basically cut a third of the film.
45 minutes out of the film, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which we haven't, I think we talked about, we haven't watched the original theatrical version.
I've seen it twice, yeah.
Since it came out. Because
I saw it in theater, and then I saw it when it came on DVD, and then I,
before
bought it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember it being bad.
Yeah, I didn't like it at all. In fact, it's up there. Look at the Rotten Tomatoes score.
It's like 40%.
Critics is 39%.
Yeah.
You're like, that's not the director's cut. That's the original review.
Yeah, it's bleeding together. And so it was interesting watching it again. I haven't seen this in probably close to 20 years. Well, yeah, it's been a long time.
Oh, okay.
I don't sit down and be like, hey, I'm going to watch a historical epic, a loose interpretation of the Crusades from 20 years ago.
I don't watch it every year, but it's probably been the last 5 years I've seen it. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So it was really great watching again and seeing how, sometimes the director relative to the studio is like, no, I got this.
Yeah, I have a problem with Ridley Scott.
I do at times.
No, I have a problem. He does not believe in directors in Final Cut. He does not believe that a director should have final cut. He believes that there are editors, there are...
I'll defer to others.
There's a whole thing. Everyone's got their job, and I'm not the be all end all to this, which I respect on one level, but then it's like, dude, but do ya?
Yeah. Maybe put down your flag in some of these. To say, I'm not going to cut so much of this to basically make it like a facsimile of the original version.
Yeah. We'll get back to that in a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, you struggle with the movie, you said.
I struggle with the sense of they just took their time in a good way. I shouldn't say struggle. They sure take their time to get the setup. I asked you hey, can we pause it and see where that
it's half hour in.
Half an hour in before any type of action.
Yeah.
And to begin with, it's okay, who's going on? Okay, this person and the background, and then this random dude shows up. And so I can see what they're going for, but I did struggle with we're slowly getting into the crux of the film.
Yeah.
So I can see how the studio was maybe tighten up that first half hour to 10 minutes. Somewhat to the detriment. But I liked that they overall did take their time to get to some of the main setup here.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Ridley Scott sure loves his epic sword and sandal epics to start in frozen European forests.
Oh yeah. Oh, you have to. Yeah. It's just
right. We're gonna have Gladiator, which we covered on this, be all about in the middle of the desert world, and this as well. But we're gonna start where there's snow and the European forest. So. It just seems like a lot to just kind of build up a half an hour to get to where they want. So I like what came after, but I will say it probably could have been maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Sure.
Cut off some of that. But
I like the thing I like about the beginning is it almost plays opposite to what a film like Gladiator does. Gladiator starts with that big epic. A lot of these films start with some
attention grabbing,
epic battle scene, whatever, and then the story kicks in. This decides, you know what? We're gonna go with the story. We're gonna tell the story first. We're gonna give you the base. And I respect that. I think no, let's get me Like, it's almost the like, don't Boris get to the chorus? Like, I mean, I
Sure.
get that, but I mean, at the same time,
Please, Boris.
a little
Wait
bit.
for the
Like,
chorus.
I don't find it boring personally.
No, I agree. No, I don't.
And actually, the theatrical version has less of what happens with Michael Sheen as his brother.
Yeah.
And what he does as this priest or whatever he is, there's less Michael Sheen in the theatrical version, and there's less of what really drives Balin to kill him and then leave. Like,
yeah.
So if they do cut a lot of that, like they did in the theatrical version, it feels very forced as to why he's suddenly stabbing his brother and burning him. Like, so I mean, I get it. But then also, I'm also like, no, I really don't. Like, in there are times where I wish Ridley Scott actually would have planted his flag in this and say, no, we need the story.
Yeah.
I'm really fucking Scott. Like,
yeah,
just let me tell the story.
Yes.
That is on the page by Monahan. Like, just, I don't know. I get it, because in modern theatrical release, you have to be able to keep people's attention.
Yeah.
So I do understand from a studio standpoint of like, hey, can you cut this down a little?
Yeah.
But they specifically asked him to cut 45 minutes. They said, like, can you cut
arbitrary.
45 minutes? And he did, and to the detriment of this film.
Totally.
Like,
Absolutely.
if they had found some sort of common ground, if you had come to, like, it's 3 hours and 13 minutes as we're looking at it now. If you would come into 2 hours and 50, like come under just under 3 hours or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it's a deal. It's a hill I'm willing to die on. In that, I think this movie is up for Best Picture that year. If they bring it down to, like, find that happy medium, because where they came in at 2.5 hours was just not good.
No.
It's disjointed. It doesn't make any sense. There's a whole subplot with the son. There's a whole subplot. Like, it's all gone. And it just doesn't make any sense. Like, you have there's no heart to it whatsoever.
Yes.
And I say that knowing 2005 is a pretty weak year.
Correct.
So again, I'm not talking about, we're talking about Ridley Scott's best film ever.
True.
But I am saying, coming off of Gladiator, coming off of Black Hawk Down, like, to go into this, I think it does become an Oscar contender.
Yeah.
If not for just the craft of the film, which we'll get into. So no, I actually think this is a movie I'm glad they took their time on for the story.
Yes.
For me personally, I get what you're saying, but I mean, it does take some time. Like, once they get to Jerusalem, that's when it really does get the traction, right?
Yes.
And when you really see Guy and Brendan Gleeson's character, once you really kind of see that they're undermining what's happening to get with it, that's when it really starts to take traction. And that's about an hour in. So I do think, like, get me there. I get where the studio's coming from. But, yeah. I don't know.
The political intrigue and the stuff around these different factions of sorts is really what I think drives the story forward, as far as, like, what are they trying to accomplish in this incendiary part of the world. I agree. An hour in, you're like, okay, you could have, like, gotten us here much quicker.
Yeah.
But that being said,
but you can feel there's a real honest, like, shift in like the I'm intrigued now. Like, I'm ready. Like,
who's this? And, like,
exactly.
that guy.
Yep.
Side note, I love they, like, give no effort to have these people sound like they're from France. Like, it's just like, again,
don't even try.
Like, whatever.
But I will give them credit that everyone on the Muslim side is
true.
Like, I mean,
it's very Arabic,
right?
Like,
and not a stereotypical bad guy Arabic. And,
no,
like, you know what I mean?
no,
But
very.
They went out of their way to cast people, like, so.
But pretty much
on the white side,
European, you're British.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, you're British.
Yeah.
Except for the German guy, you can't understand.
True. Yeah. No. It's like
20 years I've seen this movie 10 times. I still can't. I have no fucking clue what that German guy says. No idea. No idea.
So, I will say I do actually want to talk about the production value.
Okay.
We're getting right into it.
Uh-oh.
In a way of like
that you were impressed
Oh,
by it?
absolutely.
Okay, good. I was like
so
I was like, because you better be.
No, I mean, I think about like a movie like this where you think, you know, the story at times is really compelling.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like ham-fisted, like
Yeah, there are times where it
like
loses
broad
it a little.
strokes.
Yep. Yeah.
But to Scott, the director Scott's credit, and everybody else involved,
Mhm.
it is unreal
Mhm.
what they accomplish in the costuming, the sets, the visual effects are very minimal, if not like almost unnoticeable. Where like you're like, it's very much behind the scenes. Everything seems incredibly practical in camera. It is unreal what they were able to accomplish with this. And that, I think it stands the test of time when we think of a movie post Lord of the Rings, where everything and like the fervor and obsession around digital was clearly still a thing. I love that Scott's like, no, hard pass. We're going to have the tactile experience of it. It is unreal what they do in this.
Yeah, I think you think of the 90s, you think of Braveheart, you think of Saving Private Ryan, and you think, which both are the Irish Army, and there's strength in numbers, right? And like they had thousands of people showing up.
Yeah.
And I saw that. So Ridley Scott is apparently, as one would be, he was friends with the King of Morocco.
We're just chilling. Yeah.
Right. And so he got like there are 15,000 soldiers in this.
That's crazy.
Most of these are practical. Like there's actually like 15,000. Like, yeah, like it is not digital. There are certainly, because these cities don't exist in real life. So obviously like the cityscapes and stuff are CGI, but most of it, in particular when they're going against, is it Caddick or whatever it is?
Yes.
Where the horses are coming through. We were both like, what is this?
Are they all real?
It's all the background. You gotta like, it is, again, post Lord of the Rings, and then right around, I mean, we're a few years off of Avatar here as well, but like just, it's all digital at this time, but it does feel like this was a attention to old school filmmaking.
Yes.
And we talked about, I had recently rewatched Ben-Hur, similar kind, I mean, obviously there's no digital effects back then, but kind of that feel of, we're going to give an epic, like those battle scenes, the horses, like when the horse, when Baladin or whatever, Bailey or whatever, Balin is going up against those horses,
like a sea of horses.
There's just, that's real.
Yeah.
Like the practical effects in this are so well done.
Absolutely.
And again, I think it's because this came out probably middle of the year that year. I'd have to look when the release date was, and it was poorly received.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
But come on. Production design, costuming, like, this is top.
The attention
notch.
to detail is insane.
It's top notch.
Yes.
I mean, it is really well done.
Yes.
So the detail I want to talk about is actually more from a religion standpoint.
Yep.
I really think that a couple things.
Don't mind
as
the
Tim
dog.
plays with a dog. A couple things from a religious standpoint that stands out to me. We've talked about this in the past with like Bruce Almighty and some other religious-based films.
Yep.
To me, the religious shifts in this movie are really impressive.
Yeah.
In that it starts out that Michael Sheen is that stereotypical sort of bad priest,
like grifting.
Minister,
Yep.
like, you know, like in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, with, you know, the bad. They're always like the gold grubbing priest.
I'm gonna steal a trinket from a dead person.
Yep. And then we start to get this far-fetched idea that all are welcome. You know, the king says all are welcome in Jerusalem.
Everything's fine.
Everybody's welcome. David Lewis talks about how religion is the problem, faith isn't the problem, right? He talks about that. And I really like how the attention to detail here says that we get to the differences, but really, or we get that there are differences between faiths and these religions, but the similarities, like we're closer to each other than we are farther apart.
Yep.
And I can't think of another mainstream film from Hollywood that chooses to not, like, I don't even know how to say it, bastardize, or like to really shit on Muslims when Christians are involved.
Especially at the time.
Yes. We're talking 04, they're making this, 05 it's released. We're 3 years off of 9/11.
Yes.
Like, for me, this film represents exactly what the world could be when people realize we are closer than we are different. And I don't think they, and I wonder if that was purposeful at the time, but at no point, in fact, arguably, Christians are the bad guys in this movie.
Yes.
You know, and so really, to me, the attention to detail to me is saying our main characters are what, like you, Balin, and then even Saladin, and I can't remember his name. Alexander Siddiq is his name.
Yeah.
But in the movie, I can't remember the guy who he saves, basically, or allows to live. Like, these guys are us in the real world.
Yeah.
It's the extremists that get us into trouble.
Yeah, who can pillage this place.
Really, honestly, I can't think of another film around this time, especially around this time, that really kind of goes there. So attention to detail of that, to me, is really impressive.
Yeah, I remember, like, made a note of, like, the religion versus holiness dynamic.
Yes.
Like,
the worst part about religion is man, right? And like the actual religion,
like the constraints and the finite details. And so I really appreciate the movie of taking its, you know, not just the time, but the patience to kind of flesh out these storylines of who are these characters in this effort. And again, by no means am I an expert on the Crusades or anything around that time of the time of the world. And this movie doesn't even purport to be like a documentary.
It's not really even about the Crusades. Like, it's really
it's
not.
a means to an
like,
end. I agree.
Yeah,
like, it's
the story is among the Crusades, but it's not. Because Balin's not a crusader.
No.
He's a reluctant sort of like.
He's going for opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, this world I live in now, my wife is dead.
Yeah, and I've just killed my brother. So,
yeah, like, I need to get out of here because there's nothing for me here. And the idea that, yes, it talks about religion, the human, you know, constraints of these things versus a holiness, a respect and reverence for something greater than us. That's, I think, what really is a compelling dynamic in this film.
Yeah.
Where it balances that. And then what are you doing in service of that? That really could be great or destructive. And that's, I think, what's really sets it apart. I think definitely from like a, you know, it's not heavy-handed. It's not like over the top.
No,
it is.
There's not a single time you feel preached at or anything. Like, there's no right. I mean, there's none of that.
If anything, they have like the, you know, the preaching is an overabundance of tolerance, but it's like, God forbid.
Dicks.
I know, right? Moderation. Am I right?
Barf.
Yeah, exactly. So woke. So yeah, it's I agree. The religion versus holiness dynamic is really interesting for this. And what I like about it is also stressing from a character dynamic in that world, but also definitely like thinking through when it came out of like post 9/11,
right?
What criticism they might want to be offering is like, you know, integrity and nobility. What I really like is like what they're stressing through the main character Balin is, you know, people can't take away your integrity.
Right.
You have to choose to give it away.
Yeah.
And sacrifice it. And so what I really like about this is like the payoff, again, not a critique from before in many ways, but also like what seems like maybe a plot device of Balin's wife dies to start the film because she has killed herself after lost their child, and she's now having to, or Balin's grappling with the fact of like she might be in hell and all these, like, again, these religious aspects forced upon, like, what are you going to do about this, woman who's dead? Now she's like, it's a long delayed realization for him that it matters. The soul matters.
Yeah.
And so when he's in this world at the beginning thinking, I'm just going to maybe seek my fortune or something different, who knows what.
He's almost seeking just something else.
Something greater than myself. Who knows what it is.
Just to save
the
wife's soul at the time.
Exactly.
Yep.
But it is really reinforcing the idea that integrity matters, nobility matters. Like, you have this unto yourself and you won't, like, it can't be taken from you.
Yeah.
And that's what I really appreciate about this film.
Yeah, he talks about, like, what does he say about conscience, right? With they ask him if he would marry her if Guy were not around, and he talks about like that. I didn't write it down, but like effectively, like this, a world without conscience is not a world with, like, I mean,
I don't want that world.
I'm not making that decision because that's not the world that I believe we should have. And everyone else is like, oh no, how dare you, and how this kind of stuff.
You could have power, man.
Right? Yeah,
it's at your fingertips.
I really like. There's a few things I kind of coming off of that, but there's a few things that talk about like that are balance or they kind of mirror each other, because you have the two kings basically, or you have Saladin and then the king, and then they're sort of Saladin has his pupil that Balin,
right hand man, yeah.
But then, like, the king had Balin's father, and now
Godfrey.
It's him, like Godfrey. Like, so he's got these people around him are saying, or they're like propping this up on both sides, right? So there's this sense of balance. And then as that starts to crumble, the extremists kind of come in. So even Saladin has the one guy who's like, no, you promised us this. You promised us, right? And then Godfrey's gone, but then the king has Guy. And these other people who are trying to just sort of like erode this to take it over. So there's that, right? You kind of have that. But then even there's lines along the way that are like, I don't even know how to describe it. I should have written it down. This is why I should have done it. But at the end, Saladin says, like, what is it? What does Jerusalem mean? What does Jerusalem mean? It's like everything and nothing.
Yes.
And then earlier, she says yes and no, and like there's these sort of back and forth. They really go out of their way in this to balance the two faiths, these two sides.
True.
For me, I love this about that movie. About the movie is it is really trying to tell us, like, I don't even know where I was going.
We import value to something that may inherently be valueless.
Yeah, it's just
because
it's literally walls. It's I don't know. I don't want to overthink this movie by any means. Right? I don't want to go down that path. But when once you start getting into faith, and once you start getting into the religion piece, you kind of can't help but get there. You can't help but sort of put some of this stuff on it. But what I think what challenges people about this movie is it is not that overt, like, whether it's rah rah America, rah rah Christianity, rah rah
not
whatever.
jingoistic.
It's
in any way,
nothing to do with that.
Yes,
and I think that asks some really good questions. So I don't know. I just
we just had the freaking ceasefire in Israel and Gaza.
Yeah. Thanks, Trump.
Well, yeah, but like in terms of this is a thing that a movie is.
By the time this releases, it probably will be done anyway. So, let's face it.
But like 1,000 years before this,
I know
the movie's like definitely being like, we're still struggling over this plot of land.
I rambled there for a second.
No, but it's a whole thing of the movie takes effort to show that these people are fighting and dying for something that many might feel like, who gives a shit about this place?
Well, even he said, Balin said, none of our family, like,
yes,
we're not we didn't take over the city, and they everyone on that side, this city was
no
taken
one has
from
been
them.
aggrieved by
Nobody has, right. Nobody in our lifetime is, and yet here we are.
Yes. Let's
and
fight
again,
over this.
almost 1,000 years later. And Matt recently asked our parents and me about what this whole Gaza thing is about, and we were sort of dumbfounded
to
even start to explain this.
Sure.
And you're like, I mean, I guess let's go back to this time frame and before. Like,
yes.
Biblically, it's even before Jesus, and it's before. I mean, it's just like, it's so hard to describe.
Well, it's interesting. Like, for me, the kind of adding into that in the sense of like placing value onto something. It's funny watching this, maybe not funny, but like interesting watching the juxtaposition of, Balin, the son of a baron or whatever the relationship is of this man Godfrey, comes in and has all these, things bequeathed to him, like the land and title and all these positions. And it feels like, what an opportunity this is.
Yeah.
For this man who's been, coming from nothing, a blacksmith in France. And you put that against the little boy who is the nephew of the king.
Right.
So the king then dies.
Yeah.
And all these similar things are afforded to this small boy.
Yeah.
And it feels really weird.
Yeah.
And off-putting. Again, this whole monarchical thing, and almost like pathetic and sad of, on the one hand, something being handed down from a father or legacy aspect is an opportunity. It's so great for the main character. But then you can see the constraints and the really bad connotations it has for this boy to now then be the king of this world. And so I feel like it even reinforces the idea that, circumstances, details, context matters when something like this from a value perspective occurs. And I didn't think about this like watching it the first time long ago, but it is interesting watching it now, feeling like, wow, one can be an opportunity and one can be like a burden.
Yeah.
In some ways. To this point where like, oh, let's kill this kid.
Yes.
Like,
that's where I was going earlier. I totally freaking just remembered from a balance standpoint.
Yeah. Like, on the one hand, here's this thing that like, we're going to give it to this stranger, but this boy, he's now going to be a problem. And then eventually we're going to like, he might have to die.
Yeah. That's where I was going.
Super weird.
Yeah. Just with Balin and his wife and kid dying.
Yes.
And then he finds this woman who is in this like sort of like love the situation, can't handle. It's like opposite. He was in a loving relationship.
Yes. Lost
everything. She's in a loveless relationship and loses everything by her own sort of hand
effort.
But even still,
this
sort of like balance between these two, and he still finds this person in the end of it. Like, damn it, that's where I was going with it.
See,
so now
it all we work together. All come together.
I don't have much to go off of what you just said, but I will say this. Moving on to something else.
Duly noted.
I kept thinking as I was going, so I love this movie. I really do, but I don't love the theatrical cut, But
absolutely.
As I kept thinking, I feel like this is too close to Gladiator.
It is a little bit of like a retread.
But I mean, like, there's not a lot of there's not similarities necessarily in terms of the story. You know what I'm saying?
True.
But just like you talk about Sword and Sandals, but it's this weird sort of catch-22 of it's too close to Gladiator, but without Gladiator, does this movie get made?
Right? It's like, I don't know, the studio would be like, let's give tons of money to this same director.
Right. So I'm just
who
like,
won Best Picture. Yes.
So I'm kind of like, it's this weird sort of, I think it's too close to Gladiator, and the comparisons are made too quickly. Everyone talked about it at the time.
Yeah.
I think they cut so much to try and make it like Gladiator, and the theatrical cut, they wanted to get to more of the action set pieces. Whereas reality, the story is not about any of the violence. The story is all about this guy and the religion set pieces, and
Yes.
so yeah, I as I was watching it, I was like, maybe the biggest problem is that if this had been in 2008, I mean,
Yeah.
or
Like far enough
10
removed,
years
yeah.
later, maybe it's a different story,
Or maybe a different director.
yeah, maybe,
Or
but
does it
does it get made without
Probably not.
Ridley Scott? Like, I mean, the studio goes and
They're like, hey, give us a Gladiator 2. No pun intended. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, 20 years
still
later.
better
yeah.
than Onions Found Negative.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the score.
Yeah. I have maybe one other point beyond that, but let's do it. What do you got?
Sorry, I'll come back to that. No, the score, but also I have like the epic kind of finale.
No.
The score is really fantastic at times.
I agree.
Watching it, like some of the choral stuff and the elements really stand out that are really beautiful, like both from a Christian aspect and some of the Muslim stuff later on, that are like anything that has like a voice involved is really beautiful for me. And then at times, if it doesn't have that, it just becomes kind of like a Zimmer-esque knockoff in some ways. And so I really feel like overall, I like what they did, or he did with the score. And then at times I'm like, this is like rinse and repeat. I mean, we even talked about this feels like this score. This sounds like that score.
The central theme, I think, is really well done in this, this movie. The theme he came up with, and there are times where like the score actually kind of drives my emotions. Like I feel like you can kind of feel it, in particular in the battle sequences and that first Caddick kind of thing. Like as he's kind of got those themes, where it lacks to me is actually in the small moments.
Yeah, the very subdued moments.
There's
totally
not
agree.
much there, but in the big moments and then like the important part, that central theme is outstanding. Gregson Williams, I think it's a well done score. And I will say, piggybacking off of that, this is where director's cuts can be kind of troublesome to me. In particular, fuck Zack Snyder for this, but like I really get like Zack Snyder exists in a world where he'll do whatever he wants, he doesn't care, and he'll just do a director's cut later, and that's fine. That's bullshit. Like Ridley Scott had a studio come to him and say, we would like 45 minutes cut from this because of whatever reason, and he says, okay, that's fine. I'm Ridley Scott, that's fine. I'll then do a director's cut. And so then the editor on this movie, who I didn't write down his name, he spends almost 15 months editing 2 different movies. The original, and then he does the director's cut for the DVD, right? And then Harry Gregson Williams or whatever does the same for score, right? So that was a sort of like understanding that this is the world we live in. And then you have like Zack Snyder, who's like, I don't know, I'll just make this movie and we'll just release it, and then we'll just do a Snyder cut later or whatever. That to me is just lazy. That's not standing up for your vision necessarily. That's just like meh, whatever. At least Ridley Scott, he knew that they could give a director's cut. We're going to put this in theaters. We're going to do what we can. But the studio, I respect the studio and their decision to do this. So I then will negotiate and say, I will release a director's cut. That's after the fact. Movie's been done. It's 3 hours and 15 minutes. Now we need you to cut 45 minutes. Versus before we even start, we're just going to negotiate that I can record, I can have a 5-hour movie for all I fucking care. And then I'll let the studio do whatever. Like, there's that difference to me. Right. And so I respect it on one level. You know what I mean? But like, at least from a Ridley Scott standpoint, he says, I respect the process. I respect this thing. So like, I'll get there. But like the score, as much as it lacks in some of those times, I'm also kind of like, good on you, man, for being able to do 2 effectively you're doing 2 different scores. Because every score flows differently. Every scene flows differently. You have to go in. So if you're cutting little bits and pieces, 45 minutes. So the sun subplot was gone, but then all of the set pieces were just cut short.
Sure.
A lot, you know?
Yeah.
So, but now you have to cut
Take
the score
music,
short.
cut it short.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'll give you a bit of a pass on that.
Yeah.
For it being not as, oh my God, great. And so,
Yep.
sorry. For those of us, I'm watching my dog just lick the couch. Remy, enough.
That's great.
Anyway,
yeah, I agree.
that's
Cut
what I'm
it
just
down.
saying. Like,
Yep.
I mean, I agree the score at times is not that great.
It's like,
but then I also wonder how much of that is because I got to fill in 45 more minutes here,
Yep.
dude. Like,
cool. Yep.
I know.
Rinse and
So,
repeat. Do
yeah.
this. Yeah.
Anyway, I want to rant a little bit about the director's. Well, no, I think I just did. That's fine. We'll move on to. Actually, I think I'm about done. I was mostly going to talk about the director's cuts and how it bugs me. How I wish Ridley Scott would stop it. I wish he would just say I want final cut and just let me.
At this point, it's like I'm effing Ridley Scott.
Give me my cut. I respect it on one level. Because I don't love like when the Lord of the Rings films it.
Yeah.
That's a different story. It's like we're going to film the stuff knowing we have this extra cut.
Yeah.
Like that's somewhat different.
Yes.
But yeah, to me, Ridley Scott, they had this vision. It was really good. I think this movie's really good.
Yes.
And then they're like, I mean, I'm dumbfounded that they said cut 45 minutes from this, and I'm okay with that, knowing that it would be bad.
Yes.
Like it would fail. It wouldn't do well at the box office. Like,
well, I do wonder about like movies that if we had never seen a smaller cut, would we have such a reverence for it? Or is it like the, like I think,
I agree.
I think
like,
of Blade Runner.
This movie, if I showed to somebody who hadn't seen theatrical version,
I'd be like, wow.
They might be like, oh, it's actually pretty good. I like it. But when you see how much better it is than what you put out there,
right?
Yeah,
it's almost like you gotta see the bad one first, then be like, hold up, let's see what it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Oh, now I see. Like, because I think back to like almost like with Ridley Scott, Blade Runner is a terrible movie.
Yeah,
but his
which version
vision
are we talking about?
But it's so much better. So yeah, I struggle with that.
I will go back to it. The only exception to that is Payback. We talked about it before.
The
theatrical version versus the director's cut is like wildly better.
You're like,
I was like, okay.
They knew what was happening. Yeah.
My last. Do you have anything else?
I just had to say, like the finale. Sorry, finale. The final battle sequence is really, really well done. Like
from the moment those flames light up on the horizon, like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
From that moment on, it's one of the better epic.
Yeah, it's
sort of,
really, really well done.
Yes.
Like the practical effects and like this build up to this huge thing. It's not emotionally like I'm not invested in it.
There is not an emotional investment in this movie. No. That's where
it's
it does
very much like a
lack.
cerebral thing,
Yeah.
but also kind of like appreciation to the craft.
Yeah.
But no, I still think like that's a really great
Yes.
build up for the final sequence.
All of the battle sequences are actually really well done.
Yeah.
Like they're really cool.
Yep.
That's
all I got.
I guess my last point is I think we should thinking back on it, I think we should have renamed the theme to this month as Careful Who You Put in Charge. Given that Good Night and Good Luck is our next film. Otherwise, maybe Prophetic Movies from 2005.
Yeah.
But no, beyond that.
Right, Remy? I know. You got lots of thoughts. And I'm sure you heard them. Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, let's move on.
He's
here.
like, put me in charge.
He's like, yeah, put me in, coach.
I'm going up there, I'm going to try it, I'm going to let the jury decide.
As we close out our spotlight segment, we come to our final takes called The Verdict.
If we are to have faith and justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
This is where Tim and I give our final verdicts after rewatching the film and decide whether or not the movie held up over the course of 2 decades.
Now you get out of here before I call a bailiff and have you thrown in jail.
This is The Verdict.
I said to hell with it, to hell with it.
A mixed bag of a film that tries to accomplish much in a lot of areas: production value, historical flexibility, idealistic religiosity, epic scale, intimate moments. Thankfully, saved from a theatrical debacle by a far superior director's cut, Kingdom of Heaven stands tall amongst well-made and grandiose sword and sandal epics, even if at times it feels kind of disjointed and still kind of ham-fisted. It's a slow burn of a film, but give it time. And kudos to Director Scott for taking time to build up to, I think, a really epic battle sequence at the end. 4 out of 5 for me. Very much enjoyed it. Glad we watched it.
Yeah, I think sometimes taking its time gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But sometimes I go, I'm in the mood for taking my time.
Yep.
Right. So, my verdict. There are a few things in life that are as satisfying as having a memory be positively validated later on in life. And every time I watch this film, I get that feeling. The director's cut, I should say.
Yeah.
I talk about my love for the director's cut of this film more than I should, and to have that validated is wonderful every time. Kingdom of Heaven comes at the Crusades in a way that no other film chooses to, that both sides were at fault, both sides were righteous, and that both felt that they had the right to be there. For me, Kingdom of Heaven stands out because it comes at faith unlike most movies. It talks about how many faiths are actually closer to the same, but religion is when we find our substantial differences. For those who like epic filmmaking that takes its time to hook you in and deliver in the end, this is exactly what you want in a movie. Thankfully, I am that type of person, and Kingdom of Heaven is epic filmmaking at its finest. It also shows that Ridley Scott, when he wants to be, is one of the best directors to do it. If I were to critique the movie, it is that at times it is a little disjointed, and the performances are just fine.
Yeah.
Notice we never talked about any actor in the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, we never did.
But those are about all I can find. I love this movie, and I challenge anyone to tell me otherwise. I also have 4 out of 5.
Come on, not my beer.
With our reactions and verdicts to the movie out of the way, we move on to the reactions to our beers that we drank while rewatching our subject movie.
And if you want to have sex with a disgusting bad brewer with a terrible attitude,
this is where we take a look back at our beers and give our expert ratings for our drinking buddies.
Ugh, whatever. Hey, here's the truth.
This is Drinking Buddies.
Let's get weird.
We started the evening with double IPA from our friends Castle Danger Brewing out of checks notes.
Castle Danger.
There it is. Two Harbors, Minnesota. It was a 4 for me. A really solid option.
I'm curious. I'm wondering if you and I have the same ratings tonight.
Spoiler, it was a good night for beer.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yep.
This might be one of the favorite things they've done in a long time.
It's been a while since I enjoyed Castle Danger.
It's really good.
And it's something there. It's new. It's really well done.
Yeah,
I have 4 out of 5 as well.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, are there better doubles out there?
Sure.
Yeah, of course there are. But again, thank you for doing it in a 12-ounce can.
Yep. Just
it's
solid.
Good. Yeah,
Give me
I had 4 out of 5 as well. It's really good. It was a 4-pack?
Yeah.
Okay.
Super easy, like $12. Love it.
Love it.
And then Humble Forager out of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Their Enchanted Island Lava Flow Caribbean Cocktail Sour with pineapple, coconut, strawberry, and banana. Again, these guys cannot do anything wrong with sour.
I've never had. They're the best sours out there.
It was a 4.25 for me. It's fantastic. Loved it.
Yeah, twinsies. 4.25 as well. It's like if you handed me the can and kind of pour it and you kind of smell it or whatever, and I look back, I'm kind of like, I'm gonna look at this again, and you can like look at the can and you said it's Humble Forge, like, oh, okay,
yeah,
they don't miss.
No,
I have not. I'd be shocked if I rated them under a 4.
I agree.
On the sours.
Sure. The
sours.
Fact,
I'm not sure if I don't know if I've ever had anything else.
I've had some of their like IPAs.
I'm sure it's fine.
They're fine.
Their sours they figured it out. They cracked the code.
They're the best.
Yep.
And then out of Minneapolis, Insight Brewing, their Double House Plants, double dry hopped hazy IPA. So double dry hop double IPA, hazy IPA, with Azaka, Mosaic, and Citra. 4.25.
Oh,
for me.
Close. We were
Close?
close. Yeah.
4 for you?
If I were to go by smell, it's a 4.75. It is one of the most aromatically pleasing beers. I was like, this is outstanding.
Yeah.
And then I tasted it and I was like, it's good.
It's fine.
It's fine. So I had a 4 out of 5. It's an enjoyable beer. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
We talked about Insight Forever. We talked about their one-offs are way better than their regular
the flagships, kind of standard stuff,
Yeah.
they're fine.
Yeah. So it's way better than anything out there. But
Yes.
I was like,
I agree. Even smell the can now, I'm like,
it is
man.
so aromatically
Very
pleasing. Like, well done on that. Like, but overall, I was like, that's 4 out of 5.
And then end of the evening with Fair State out of Minneapolis.
It was Fair State. Okay.
Yeah, a Dose of Thunder Baltic Porter. Don't know what's different about a Baltic versus a regular porter. But I love these descriptions. Rich and robust with notes of coffee and creme brulee.
Sure.
Blah, blah, blah.
There was no creme brulee in that.
No. I don't care about the description for like the beer itself. It was a 4
Yeah.
for me. It was solid.
Yeah.
Really great
Yeah,
porter.
it had a muted flavor to it. It wasn't, thankfully, not too smoky. It wasn't, like, didn't do any of that.
Yep.
Creme brulee, whatever.
I know, it's like whatever.
It's just, I almost want to dock it just for the a-holeness of the...
Like, never read Fair State's descriptions. Because you just go,
Oh, it's like, it's like Wild Minds. You just don't do it.
Yeah, but no, it was very
I
good.
had 4 out of 5 as well. It was good. It was a really solid night of beer. There was... I'd have all of these again. Probably the Fair State was the weakest of all of them.
I agree.
But that's fine. I mean, it was really good. So I liked it.
The exciting quiz program 21.
Our final segment of the episode is Quiz Show.
I have stood on the shoulders of life, and I've never gotten down into the dirt to build.
Where in our research for our subject film, we find some interesting trivia nuggets that we hope will stump the other and possibly intrigue you.
This is not McCarthyism. You're not here to expose for the sake of exposure.
This is Quiz Show.
Well, evidently, certain of the contestants were given the answers in advance.
Cheating on a quiz show. It's like plagiarizing a comic strip.
I have a couple. What do you got?
I got a couple.
You
I got 3.
You got 3? All right.
Yep.
I guess I had 3, but I knew the Game of Thrones one would be like
Once
I
they
had it
acted
on
like,
there.
Wait a second.
I know. And I was like,
Sword
it's hard 'cause
Sandal.
actually, I mean, Nikolai Goster-Waldau or whatever, he's pretty clear at the beginning, but
Yes.
then Ian Glenn doesn't show up until the very last scene.
I was like,
And you're
wait a
kinda
second.
like, I know. I was like, damn it.
It's like the Cersei guy, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, you got dragon scale or whatever it is, like leprosy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have 2.
Cool.
I'll
go.
Go ahead.
So, screenwriter William Monahan.
Correct.
For this film, had his screenwriting debut.
Yes.
And he would go on to win the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay
Sure.
for his next film.
Yes.
Just 2 years later for what Best Picture winning crime drama.
I mean, it's the next year, isn't it? It's 06.
Sorry,
Departed wins.
I was thinking, 2. Sorry.
I mean,
the
it's
next
The
year.
Departed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. Yes, The Departed. We're sort
I
of
didn't load any dings along the way. I'll have to throw that in there.
I'll give you that. Yes.
Well, now I have 1 trivia. So,
sorry.
No, why are you sorry? That's fine.
That's funny.
What do you want to ask another one then? Since I only have 1 left, and I swear to God, if you have mine, I'm going to be so pissed.
So we do another screenwriter.
There you go.
Thing with Monahan. He would adapt another story, not just Departed. A film starring Ben Affleck in 2021, set around a young writer and his inspirational bartending uncle.
Oh, sure.
That film, The Tender Bar, was directed by what Oscar winner?
Damn it. I was like, The Tender Bar.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wait. I
Yeah.
was like, The Tender Bar. Was it Ridley Scott?
It was not.
Oh, I was like, wait a second. It couldn't have been,
No.
right? Tender Bar. Who directed that movie? I should know this.
You should.
Is it Ben Affleck?
It is not.
No, it's not.
What's our happy hour?
Oh, that's right. It was George
Teaser,
Clooney.
George Clooney.
Golly.
Yep.
I like that movie, actually.
It's
and that's
very
why,
nice.
Yeah.
It's a fine
Ben
film.
Affleck's actually really good in that movie.
It's a pleasant film.
Oh,
Yes.
I should have gotten
There
that.
you go.
All right. Here's my pro there's my ding for the first one.
Yeah.
I'm not so we don't have to edit it later. All right. You got one more?
I do.
Why don't you give me yours?
So Jeremy Irons.
Okay.
In this.
Yes. Who's actually Jeremy Irons is very good in this.
He's not bad in anything.
No, I know, but like it is nice because he's not the bad guy.
True.
Like
that's true.
You know, it's kind of he does a really good job in this movie.
Yeah.
Though thinking back to the acting performances, like Alexander Siddiq and then the Saladin guy, those are actually probably the two standouts.
Yes.
Anyway, off topic, but go ahead.
So he's a obviously legendary actor.
Sure.
And in the spirit of us widening our films this coming year, he has won an Oscar. And he did win the Oscar for his lead acting role 35 years ago in what 1990 drama co-starring Glenn Close.
Is it Dangerous Liaisons?
Ooh, good guess.
No,
It is not.
No, it's not. What is it?
Reversal of Fortune.
Oh, okay.
I was like, oh my God, 35 years. Perfect timing.
That is good timing.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll cover a couple 90s movies coming up. All right,
Yep.
well.
There you go.
All right, well, I got 2 wrong and 1 right because I already have it.
True.
Okay, Tim. So, John Finch. You're going to love this trivia, by the way.
I like it.
John Finch, who portrays the character. They call it Jerusalem in the, credits, but it's the bishop, the guy who...
Oh, sure.
Who is, like... throughout the whole thing, telling him
he's
to
basically
convert
like
to Islam at the end or whatever.
Bishop bitch.
Yeah. So John Finch portrays the character Jerusalem in this film. Actually, this was his final film. He died a few years later. Actually, he has missed out on some pretty incredible roles in the past. He actually turned down the role of James Bond in Live and Let Die.
Jeez.
And while he accepted another famous role, he had to drop out of it due to health-related issues around his diabetes. For what Ridley Scott classic did Finch have to leave the role of Kane?
Oh, God. Kane.
I know. I can't give much more away than that simply because...
Oh, my gosh. White Squall. No, just kidding.
Great movie. But yeah.
It's very good. Blade Runner?
No.
Oh, Alien. God damn it.
Alien.
Oh, I almost thought like no.
So he was Kane and he had to leave the role. Obviously, then that goes to John Hurt, and so we could have been talking about.
That's a great call.
John Finch.
Nice
for getting his chest ripped out
burster.
by. Yeah.
Oh man, that's good. Really good. Nice.
Oh, well, thank you, good sir. All right, so that brings us to the end of the episode and the beginning of our look back at the films of 2005 and beyond. Be sure to find all of our previous episodes on your favorite streaming platforms and stay tuned for our upcoming look back at Good Night and Good Luck. Find us on the web via the metaverse of Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and head to 20years4beers.com for more info. We want to say thank you for taking the time to listen and for clicking that like or subscribe button on your devices. This has been 20 Years 4 Beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks.
I don't have much to go off of what you just said, but I will say this.
Duly noted.
Duly noted. Meaning we... Can you hear the dog?
Don't mind the dog in the background.
Yeah, thanks, Trump.